5.
Councillor Morgan, we're now live with the Licensing Committee.
Okay, thank you. Good evening all. Welcome to this evening's meeting. I'm Councillor Les Morgan and I will be chairing this meeting. Due to the current coronavirus pandemic, the Council have taken steps to follow restrictions and health guidance in relation to self-isolation and social distancing, whilst balancing the needs of carrying out our regulatory functions. This is the first meeting that is being held remotely. The agenda for the meeting will run as the usual format. I can confirm to you all that the meeting is being broadcast live to the public. However, there will be no input from the public. They only have audio access. This is in line with the requirements of the Coronavirus Act 2020, Section 78. I'll now ask all those present to introduce themselves, starting with my fellow councillors. Councillor Axel.
Present.
Biggin, apologies. Hilary Cootsey.
Present.
Councillor Cregan.
Is it? Present. What's that?
Councillor Morgan, just to confirm, Councillor Cregan is present.
Okay. Councillor Davison is absent. Councillor Derea.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Fellows.
Present.
Kerr Brown is apologies. Councillor Myers apologies, and McCarthy's apologies. Councillor Wellborn.
Present.
Thank you, Councillor Wellborn. Thank you, councillors. I'll now ask the officer and those present presenting reports to introduce themselves.
Jenny Cordwell from Democratic Services.
Paul Clisby from Legal Services advising tonight.
Good evening, everyone. It's Dave Watson, Public Section Unit Manager. I'll be presenting the Pavement Cafe report and the Street Trading report.
Good evening, I'm Catherine Parry, Licensing Manager, and I'll be presenting the Unmet Demand Survey.
And I'm Ian Millership, who's from LVSA, and I'm the author of the Demand Survey report.
Okay. Thank you all for that. Before I go into the agenda, you will all be no doubt aware now of the sad loss some weeks ago of our dear colleague and friend Pauline Nelson. So I'll just ask for a few moments of reflection in Pauline's honour before we start the meeting. Okay, thank you for that. Now we'll move to part one. Officially, what apologies have we got for absence, Jenny?
We have apologies from Councillor Marr, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Brown and Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. Have we any declarations of interest? I don't think we have we?
No.
Okay. The next item moves Can someone confirm that those are the true and correct record?
Wasn't something.
Councillors?
Was that?
Yes, Chairman, I can confirm they're a true record.
Yeah.
And someone to second?
I second that. Maureen Cregan.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Cregan. We now move to minutes of the licensing committee.
12th of August.
The subcommittees. The minutes of the licensing subcommittee held on the 18th of December and the 17th of January. They're a correct record. Those attending.
So,
I did attend and I believe that they are a correct record. Are we right up to now there, Jenny?
Chair,
Apologies.
I think
The
Chair, sorry, Paul Clisby speaking. I think you're dealing with the licensing subcommittee minutes of the 12th of August and the 14th of August.
yeah.
Yes.
And then the
Yes.
taxi subcommittee of the 24th of July.
That's item 4.
yes, that's correct, Chair. The licensing sub minutes of the 12th of August and the 14th
Yes.
of August.
Councillors Cooksey and Axel both attended along with myself. Can Councillors Cooksey and Axel agree that they're the correct record?
Yes, I agree.
Yes, yes.
Well,
Yes,
August.
Chair, I agree. Yeah. Correct record.
And Councillor Davison isn't here to agree the other one. So Councillor Cooksey, you and I were here 14th
Yes.
of August.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I agree they're a correct record.
Thank you, Councillor Cooksey. Are we on Item 6 now. Yes.
It's just item 5, Chair, the taxi subcommittee.
Taxi subcommittee of the 24th of July. I'm sorry about this, councillors. It's this new process, new procedure. Councillors Axel and Cootsey, are you agreed on correct record there?
Correct record, Chair.
Yes, correct record, Chairman.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you for your patience. Thank you. Now we move to item 6. The taxi unmet demand survey for Warrington Borough Council, which I believe is Catherine is to give the report. Catherine.
Yes, I'll present that. Thank you, Chair, members. Welcome to the Licensing Committee on the 8th of September 2020 to consider the findings of the survey carried out by LVSA Traffic and Transportation into the number of hackney carriage vehicles in the Borough of Warrington. I'm mindful, Chair, that the Licensing Committee and Ian Millership from LVSA have already received the paperwork, so I shall therefore only provide a very brief summary, which is made up of the report and a total of 5 appendices, which you actually have before you. The appendices 1, it refers to industry statistics, 2, list of the ranks, and the additional supporting documents form Appendix 3, timetable of rank observations, 4, detailed rank observation results, and Appendix 5, detail on street interview results. LVSA were commissioned through the council procurement process to carry out a survey to review the level of demand for taxis in Warrington, and the survey took place between September 2019 and January 2020. I would ask members to note the introduction and background at points 3 through to 3.6, points 5, 6 through also to 7 of the report. The LVSA research provides the Licensing Committee with an up-to-date review of the level of demand of taxis in the Warrington area. If approved, this will form the basis on which individual licences will be considered until the next formal review, which will be in 3 years' time. I shall now hand over the presentation to Ian Millership to present his findings. Thank you, Chair, members.
Thank you, Catherine. You go ahead, Ian.
Okay. Going to put the first slide up. That's just the banner header. And just to say, I'm Ian Millership. I've undertaken this survey just before the new year, or before coronavirus happened. I did the survey previous to that and several others. So we have all the information, so we have a continuous record over some while. If you can move to the slide, aim of this survey. That just makes it clear that the aim of the survey is to identify any significant unmet demand or otherwise, and provide the committee evidence of the current position regarding unmet demand and its existence at the point in time that we did the work. And just to remind you again, all of the evidence was collected in full in advance of any impact of the coronavirus pandemic. In fact, by the time we collected most of the information, we didn't even know what coronavirus was, if we can believe that now. If you can move to the next slide, which is the timetable. All the work between September 2019 and January of this year. Rank observations were early October. On-street interviews in October and November. Driver survey between October and November, key stakeholders through all of that period. And if you now move to the next slide, that'll summarise the fleet and industry issues that we've identified. Warrington's got a very high frequency of local authority run bus services. It's got a central area and 10 different suburban centres. Its local transport policy encourages ranks at the interchanges. Hackney carriage vehicle numbers have been limited, and that policy is regularly reviewed. Up to 2009, the number of licences was under a process called managed growth, and since 2009, the growth has been set to 0. So there have been no extra Hackney carriage plates added since 2009. Interestingly, in the period of managed growth, Hackney carriage and private hire vehicle numbers grew at about the same level, which is interesting because obviously private hire were growing according to demand, and the Hackney carriage were according to the thoughts of what managed growth should be, and they were matched quite closely. Since that time, since 2009, private hires have increased, although they went down 4% between March 2019 and the October council numbers that were given at the time we did the rank survey. Dual driver growth has had a similar pattern to vehicle numbers, including that similar recent drop. About a third of the Hackney carriages are wheelchair accessible, but only about 3% of the private hire fleet is wheelchair accessible. And that's very typical around the country. You can go to the next slide, which is what we found out about the rank activity. We found the demand is spread across 5 central ranks, and that demand is very healthy. New Times Square provision has been provided since that study. The night demand has moved to Barbold Street, fed from Ryland Street, whereas before most of it was down where the old Times Square was in the past. And the main booking office in the area for private hire has also moved up to Ryland Street from a similar area to the other main rank. Overall, you've got 3 day ranks and 3 night ranks. The 3 day ranks are firstly the interchange, which operates late morning to just before midnight, and that provides 19% of estimated demand in a typical week. Central Station operates from mornings to early morning, and that again is 19% of estimated weekly demand. The Bank Quay Station rank operates earlier. It goes on till just after midnight when the trains cease there, and that provides about 22% of estimated weekday demand. The interesting thing is the Stockton Heath rank, although it's only fairly small, that provides an estimate of 19% of weekday passengers as well. It's got the earliest start for any night rank and the earliest finish. Academy Way and Barbold Street start a bit later and go on till very much later. Academy Way produces 12% of estimated weekday demand and Barbold Street 10%. Interestingly, the estimated patronage from the work in 2019 was up about 2% from the level in 2016. Around the country, we've been tending to find Hackney carriage usage has dropped, but yours is just above stable. And to service that demand, we saw 72% of all the available plates on the weekend, on the Saturday of the observation. The next slide, which gives the public consultation results, tells us that 83% of those we interviewed said they'd used a licensed vehicle in the area in the last 3 months. Now that's all vehicles, that's private hire and Hackney carriage, because most people think when you ask about taxi, you mean both. The number of licensed vehicle trips per person per month estimated from what people said was 3.6 per person per month for all vehicles and 0.8 for Hackney carriages. Rank and hailing usage adds up to about 29%. Main private hire usage increase came from use of an app. And interestingly, because there's a local app, that suppressed the use of one of the national apps. And it was the main local app that was dominant. In terms of the ranks, the one at interchange is most known by people. People know most of the ranks, but they don't quite know exactly what to call them. We found that people have got a very general good satisfaction with the service provided, but there is, as often, room for improvement, and that was mainly on driver behaviour. Latent demand in the area had gone up a bit from 3 years ago, but it still remains at a low level. If we go to the next slide, that details the thoughts about stakeholder consultation and disability. Most of the stakeholders we talked to were not aware of ranks. Most of them basically thought that their customers used private hire. But those in the night economy were aware of ranks and how important they were to the night economy. Main concerns that were raised by the stakeholders were private hire responses and the promised times, which often weren't kept. And that's a problem on the private hire side, not the Hackney carriage side. We did actually see a similar level of wheelchair accessible vehicles arriving at the ranks, as is the proportion in the fleet. And we actually saw 5 people accessing Hackney carriages at the ranks in wheelchairs. If we move to the next slide, that details the responses from the trade. That was put out there by a letter sent out, which was responded to online. The response from Hackney carriages was about 7%, from private hire about 4%. The overall numbers are lower than 2016, but the spread between Hackney carriage and private hire is better. The operation that we found was very similar to the results in 2016. Drivers who talked about ranks, they used most quoted Bank Quay, followed by the interchange, Central, Stockton Heath and Barbold Street. So in essence, they mentioned most of the ranks apart from one. We think that 50% of fares actually came from ranks, which is higher than people said before. But there was only one of those that responded who was actually totally dependent on getting his work from the ranks. 38% of respondents said 90% of their work was from ranks and the rest was from either hailing or mainly from other contracts. 75% of all those responding, which did include a lot of private hire drivers, agreed with the retention of the limit. There was one Hackney carriage driver that did not think the limit should be retained, but when we looked into who they were in detail, actually they didn't get much work from ranks. Most of their work was from school contracts, so you could argue that in essence they weren't that bothered about the limit in any event, and they certainly weren't dependent on ranks. But it was interesting, as in many places, that the private hire supported the limit, and that's consistent with before. We move to the next slide, which looks at the industry standard unmet demand evaluation. The index level was 57, which is below the cut-off of 80. The amazing thing that I found here and haven't found anywhere else is that the index, that 57 value, has been stable over nearly all the surveys that have been undertaken. At one point it was perhaps 51. But the last 3 surveys, it's been very similar and around that number. We don't tend to find that. We tend to find things change. Most of the components within the index have improved in favour of better service since 2016, apart from average passenger delay and latent demand, both of which had increased a bit. However, when you took them all together, the overall index didn't change. In other words, the level of service to the public was very similar now to what it has been for a long time. So that gives me confidence to say there's significant evidence that the current policy of the limit actually provides benefit to the public, stability to the trade, and all of the indices and all of the evidence we've got suggests it's a great thing. It's doing a good job. It's doing what it should do. If we move on to the next slide, which gives the key conclusions, the first and most important is that there's no evidence of any unmet demand that is significant in the area. That covers both latent and patent demand. The current limit policy provides public benefit and trade stability, and we would therefore recommend it be retained. The service provided is well appreciated. At the time it was undertaken, the taxis were holding their own against competition. There were stable levels of service and usage. The amazing thing, and this is only possible in a few places, but we actually found 5% of all the public transport passengers in Warrington leave from ranks in Hackney carriage vehicles. 18% of the rail passengers from Bank Key leave in a hackney carriage. Hackney carriages are a very key filler of gaps in public transport. I think Stockton Heath would be in a major problem if it weren't for the hackney carriages getting people away from there. And overall, the night economy is incredibly dependent on hackney carriages and basically serves them incredibly well. Next slide, further key conclusions. We found, looking at things, the way your light vehicles are identified, both hackney carriage and private hire in the area, is excellent. People understand it well and it's very clear. There is a challenge there that you have quite a few unused ranks that have been there for a long time and they probably need removing. Then you could better publicise the ranks that are active. We think that the trade should take note and consider, particularly the hackney carriage side, making use of a hackney carriage app to help maintain their position. We think that actually the trade was in a very good position and been stable for a long time and was doing a great job. And I think that would have put them in a very good place to be able to react to what we didn't know was coming when we did this piece of work. If we move to the next slide, the very final key comments. If you continue the limit policy, you need to consider refreshing the rank surveys and the database of information no later than October in 2022. That's in line with the current best practice guidance, which remains current and valid. We think you've got an incredibly healthy and stable industry, or you did at the time we did this and at the time before the pandemic hit. And as I say again, hopefully they're well placed to react to the future. One other thing that I've worked out since, to give you some idea of where demand comes from in a typical week, 19% comes from shopping demand, and we would think with the pandemic that has probably resurged the closest to what level it was at, and probably will do and stick there. Station demand accounted for about 41% of all the demand in the area. Now, rail demand is tending to come back much more slowly than other public transport demand. So that 41% could be hit and could be down maybe as low as 10%, maybe up to 20%. And the 40% is night demand. That again is probably coming back more slowly. But in essence, you know, the main concern probably there from the pandemic would be, you know, the impact on the station ranks and those that serve those. But in essence, you know, demand might be 20 to 30% down on our best estimates, best guesstimates from what we've seen. But that's where you are, and on the ground you probably know better than me. So at that point, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very good presentation. And can I ask members, are there any questions for the officer or officers? Councillors, members?
Yeah. Chair, I've got a not question, but a couple of comments.
Councillor Axel, go ahead.
Thank you. On page 42 of the report, or page 71 of the committee papers, there's information of length of time which hackney carriage drivers are working per week, and 43% of those who responded are working 6 days a week. 26% of those responded 7 days a week, which suggests that they're having to work pretty hard to make a living. So I think it's another reason for not increasing the numbers, because otherwise the work will be spread thinner. Similarly, on the following page about the operation of ranks, half said that there are issues and of getting onto the rank, various ranks, and so again, if there were more Hackney carriages, that problem would be exacerbated. So that I think those two bits of information in the report, very comprehensive report, but those two bits of information again support us retaining the same policy. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any, have you got a response to that, Ian?
No, I accept that. That's very correct. I agree with that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Any questions or comments on the report?
Chair, if I may, it's Dave Watson, Public Protection Unit Manager.
Go ahead, Dave.
It's not a question, but I'd just like to go on record and thank the trade for providing invaluable service at this difficult time. I think it's important that we recognise that they've continued to work throughout the pandemic. So if we could just recognise that, I think that's important to put that on record, Chair.
I think that is very important, Dave, and I think we'll get that minute in and get thanks for those people. Thank you.
Chair, there was just one other thing as well.
Brian.
On page 92 of the committee papers, page 63 of the report about non-central rank locations, London Road, Stockton Heath, near the Red Lion, it says to be revised in 2017. So I think that date, or that year, has to be changed.
Yes, I can see that.
Yes, the answer with that one is it was to be revised in 2017. It still hasn't.
It was to be revised. Okay. A missing word. Thank you.
I don't know actually if Catherine, if you can update whether there's still plans to change that rank, but I don't think certainly nothing could happen by the time we surveyed. And I suspect it probably isn't going to change now. I don't know.
Yes, I have no further information at this stage now.
Right, thank you, Catherine. Yeah, one little three-letter word there makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, if I can just add to that, Chair, just we are continuing to work with our transportation colleagues and the taxi marshals in regards to the redundant ranks and the existing ranks. And we will pick up the actions recommended in the report. So I'm grateful for Ian for his research and detailed report, which we'll take forward.
Yeah, we discussed that with the taxi marshals at our nighttime economy meetings, don't we? So we are always in touch with those people.
Chair, I think Councillor Wellborn is trying to get your attention. Councillor
Wellborn.
Thanks, Chairman. May I ask if anybody else is picking up a background?
You're breaking up, Graham.
Background report.
I'm not getting very clear. Is there anything you can do about this?
Yes, Chairman. May I ask if anybody else is getting a simultaneous commentary or an echo throughout the report? I mean, it's an excellent report. I don't know. I'm just reporting. I'm getting a background commentary. I'm asking if anybody.
I think it is probably better if we have our mics switched off until we want to speak. That may affect it. I don't know. Can IT put us right on that?
Yeah, it's Anthony from IT. There's not been any issues with the sound so far as we're concerned, so it could just be an issue at your end, Councillor Wellborn.
You hear that, Graham? Councillor Wellborn, could you hear that response? I think not.
Yeah, I managed to follow it, and it's an excellent report. But throughout, there was a sort of echo and simultaneous.
Well,
yes, I did hear you. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We'll have to have a look in Councillor Graham, Councillor Wellborn's IT possibly for future meetings. Councillor Fellows, are you wanting to come in?
No, everything's fine.
Thank you, Les. Thank you.
Fellows? Anyone else got any questions for the office? No. I think that debate's not going anywhere else. So do we have a proposer and seconder for the item?
Can I propose that the report's accepted and that the current policy continues?
Thank you for that, Councillor Axel. And we have a seconder.
I'm happy to second that, Chair. Jeff Fellows.
Chair, it's Paul Clisby speaking. Can I just ask you also, I think that deals with most of the matters, but there is also the issue of requesting a further survey in 2023-24. Which your officers would be grateful if you could add that to the recommendation, to the proposal.
Yes, yes.
I'm happy with that, Chair.
Okay with that, Brian. And our seconder.
Yes,
Was that Councillor Fellows?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right, can I hand over to Jenny now to take the vote, and can you clearly state for, against or abstain when your name's called? Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Axel.
For.
Councillor Cooksey.
For.
Councillor Cregan.
For.
Councillor Dirra.
For.
Councillor Fellows.
For.
Councillor Morgan.
For.
And Councillor Wellborn.
We have lost him again.
Councillor Wellborn, are you still with us?
For.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you. The report has been accepted. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, colleagues. Can I now ask you to move to item 7? Are we on now? Yes. The temporary payment cafe policy. And Dave Watson to give the report.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll present the report this evening, members, on the temporary pavement cafe policy. Just for clarity, we do actually have a permanent pavement cafe policy as well, but this was something that we introduced in response to the pandemic and to make sure that we could support responsible businesses throughout that pandemic. So the report this evening is to reaffirm the council's position in relation to its pavement cafe policy, which has previously been shared, and to reaffirm our position in terms of the waiver of the temporary fee. And if members can bear with me, I'm working on a digital copy on a split screen, so I will be looking to my side while I present the report. I'm not going to present it in its entirety, but I will pick out the key points for members this evening for your consideration and debate. So I think the first point to acknowledge is that the council acted early. We introduced our temporary policy prior to the government legislation being enacted, and we wish to do that so we could support the trade at the earliest opportunity. The policy seeks to enable the authority to make timely decisions on temporary pavement cafe licences and to ensure that we still propose or impose appropriate conditions on those areas. The policy was shared with members on the 24th of June, and members were in support of the temporary policy. After that date, the government introduced the legislation, and an updated version was shared with members on the 29th of June. The latest policy is set out in Appendix 1 for members' consideration. The government's legislation recommends that local authorities should make reasonable provision for smoke-free areas. The council's position is that we would like pavement cafe areas to be smoke-free, and that is reflected in our policy and in condition 11 of Appendix 2 of the report. Officers are now determining applications, and I'm pleased to say that we have approved a number of temporary pavement cafe areas in support of the hospitality sector at this time. In terms of the legal implications, we have previously shared this report with you members. It has been brought back in front of the committee formally this evening in order that we can ratify the report and so that you can debate it as part of a full licensing committee. There is no statutory right of appeal in relation to an officer's decision. It is a delegated decision for an officer, but we do give the applicant the right to submit an updated application again to the council, and we will consider that free of charge. The reason why there's no statutory right of appeal within the legislation is that it's a quick process. It's designed to make a timely decision on behalf of the licensed premises, and therefore the periods that are stipulated within the Act don't allow for a formal appeal process. But as I say, we will consider a reworked application on behalf of the trade. Just to be clear, this is a temporary process. All temporary licenses will automatically expire on the 30th of September 21, unless the government decide to extend the provisions of the legislation. However, applicants do have the right to convert those temporary licenses to a permanent license using the existing provisions under the Highways Act. In terms of financial considerations, the council are very keen to support a pavement cafe culture. It's part of our plans and procedures moving forward, and we charge a minimal fee for a permanent pavement cafe licence. The council decided to waive the fee in its entirety for the temporary licence, reflecting the quick and timely nature of the decision, but also to support the trade at this difficult time. In terms of the risk assessment, there was some concern that the Business and Planning Act would result in a relaxation of off sales, and that would result in more vertical drinking in the street and lack of adequate social distancing. I'm pleased to say that the Act was amended before it came into force, and that the off licence or the off sales provision does cease at 11 o'clock. And obviously we will act on any irresponsible trading practices and ensure that premises continue to support a COVID secure working environment. The recommendation in front of you this evening, members, is to approve the adoption of the temporary payment cafe policy as set out in Appendix 1 and the associated conditions which are set out in Appendix 2 for your consideration this evening, members. Thank you, Chair.
We've lost you, Dave.
I'm still here, Chair. I've presented the report. Hopefully members were able to hear the presentation, and it's now for any questions that members may have in relation to the report, Chair.
Members, we seem to have lost David a couple of times during that presentation.
Chairman, I heard every word, so it might be a problem with your IT.
Yeah.
I managed to hear everything as well, Chair.
Mm.
If it would assist, Chair, just to reaffirm that this is a policy that we have previously shared with committee via email, and the purpose this evening is just to reaffirm our position formally as part of a licensing committee, to debate any key points, and obviously hopefully to reaffirm our position by adopting the report and its conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
A question, Chair, if I may.
Councillor Wellborn, Councillor Axel, sorry.
It's on the smoke-free condition. It looks from the national conditions that reasonable provision for seating is required where smoking is not permitted. From paragraph 11, it looks as if in our case we're saying there shouldn't be smoking anywhere. Is that the correct understanding?
That's correct, Councillor. The council obviously recognises people that do wish to smoke, but we do have a health and wellbeing policy, and we are actively taking steps to ensure that we support people in terms of their health and wellbeing, and that we feel that we've got appropriate evidence to suggest that a smoke-free environment should be maintained where possible, and that is the recommendation in front of committee and included within condition 11. Clearly, in terms of enforcement of that condition, we will always be pragmatic and have regard to our enforcement policy, but that is correct, Councillor.
Chair, I just wonder if it might have been used from paragraph 11 if the wording had said smoking is not permitted anywhere within the licensed area. Says the licence holder must make provision for smoke-free external seating, but you almost might think, well, maybe that means only some of it's smoke-free. So I just wondered that word in that sentence might make it 100% clear.
If members would like to add further clarity to condition 11, I'm more than happy for members to revise the wording of condition 11 to reflect the recommendation from Councillor Axel. If that's voted on by committee, we will ensure that the policy is amended to reflect the decision of the committee.
Could I just ask, Chair, can I have a moment? I'll take it anyway. Dave, just thank you very much for putting that report together. I'd just like to say on behalf of all the licensed premises and all the people who will benefit in helping support the business to get you got this off the ground really quickly. And like you say, it's named as fast track, and the fact that they've not had to find any more financial any money within their budget to pay for it, I think is really supportive of them. And also the fact that it's been extended to next September, I think you said. I think it's brilliant. My question would literally be to ask, in contrast to what the previous councillor has just said to me, not every venue is large, and it doesn't have many areas for smoking provision. And as much as we want to be health conscious, they may not have the option of saying that the entire area is smoke free, and that was the reason why they had to have designated smoking areas in the first place. So would that not limit or restrict people if we was to put those words in?
The intention of the thank you for that, councillor. The intention of the national condition is to reflect the government's view that they don't want to discourage people from going into hospitality venues, and it should be a matter of choice for the patrons and indeed for the premises. The council's position is that from a health and wellbeing perspective, we would like to support and encourage a smoke-free environment. That's why we've tried to be more categoric within our position and actually put the recommendation within condition 11 that it should be a smoke-free environment, which we would infer means that there's no smoking within that area. But again, it is committee's policy, and it's up to committee to decide where they feel that the correct balance is between reasonable provision or an absolute requirement for a smoke-free environment. Thank you, councillor.
Thank you.
Okay,
can I just add to that, Chair?
Yeah.
Sorry, Paul Clisby.
Yes,
Yeah,
Councillor Fellows.
Sorry, Councillor Morgan. I didn't catch that.
I was asking Councillor Fellows, was he okay with that?
Oh, sorry. Yes, there was a bit of a crossover then. I'm happy with that. Yes. It was the other councillor whose name I didn't catch, and I'm not too sure who it was who was present. Who
Councillor
said,
Axel.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Axel. It was just the clarity on that. I'm happy with that. Yes, of course I am.
Okay, any further questions or comments from members?
Yes, sir, Chairman.
Who have we
Chairman,
got?
can you hear me, Councillor Dirra?
Go ahead, Linda. Yes, sir.
Councillor Dirra. Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I'd just like to add in support for what Dave said, Dave Watson, on the issue about, beefing it up from Warrington's point of view. I think it's always important, very, very important, that we put health and well-being first, and we wanted to make that a little bit different in Warrington than the blanket. Let's just get back to service. I think that is a very good point, and I would support that. So.
Okay. Thank you very much, Linda. Anyone else? Not hearing or seeing anything. Have we got
Hello, it's Jenny from Democratic Services. It seems that Councillor Morgan's connection has dropped. Councillor Morgan, are you back with us?
Can we all hear?
Councillor
Yes.
Morgan, I think there's an issue with your connection. So, if I remember correctly, we were up to where you'd asked for a proposer and seconder for the item 7.
I'm happy to propose, Chairman.
Councillor Paul Clisby speaking. Can I just confirm that that is with the amended condition discussed by Mr. Watson?
Yes, absolutely.
There we are.
So is there a seconder for that proposal?
Yes, I second that proposal. Councillor Cregan.
Thank you,
Perhaps, Jen,
Councillor.
you'd like to take the vote then? Yep.
Right, okay, so take the vote, Paul. Okay. Okay, Councillor Axel,
4.
Councillor Fuxey,
4.
Councillor Cregan,
4.
Councillor Dirra,
4.
Councillor Fellows,
4.
Councillor Wellborn,
Same 4.
Councillor Wellborn, I think you were still on mute. Councillor Wellborn?
Right, speak now.
4.
Thank you, Councillor Wellborn.
Thank you.
Is Councillor Morgan back with us?
Yes, I can't say to anyone else. I can hear you now.
Okay, so I'm just asking for you for your vote for item 7. Oh, Councillor Morgan, I think there's a delay with your connection.
This is not.
Are you with us, Councillor Morgan?
I'm here.
Okay. Do you agree to the recommendation?
With Councillor Axel's amendment.
Yes, okay, thank you. So all other councillors voted in favour as well, so the recommendation with the amendment has been accepted. So we're okay to move on to item 8, if you're happy, Chair.
Is that back on?
Councillor Morgan, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I keep getting thrown out of the meeting for some reason.
Okay. The all councillors agreed to the recommendation of item 7, so that has been passed. So we're okay to move on to item 8.
Right, thank you.
Okay. If Dave wants to present the report, please.
Can you still hear me before we go any further?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Right, thank you. Okay, Dave, can you go on with item 8, the street trading policy, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your patience this evening in the virtual setting. We do understand and appreciate members' commitment and involvement this evening, so thank you for that. The purpose of this report is to consider proposed changes to our street trading policy. The reason for the recommendation in front of members this evening is we feel that we've significantly enhanced the existing report. We feel that we've strengthened our position in relation to safeguarding. We've streamlined some of the administrative processes, and we've also ensured that there's no duplication within the policy in relation to other policy areas within the council. And we've also strengthened the report in terms of hygiene standards within street trading, and also in terms of waste control as well. So in terms of background and introduction, we adopted our street trading policy on the 23rd of January 2012. The reason was that we wanted to have a vibrant street trading economy that complemented the existing trade, that took into account the needs of local residents, but also the character and ambience and safety of other environments, and that we were able to offer greater choice to customers as well. Full Council at its meeting on the 25th of March 2013 gave delegated powers to this committee to make changes to their policy, and the policy was last updated in 2014. In terms of the proposed changes to the policy, just again in summary, we've summarised the goods that we consider to be prohibited. There'll be no surprises there, members, that's in relation to things like items that you wouldn't wish to see being sold on street trading, such as weapons or other areas such as medicine. So just for clarity, we've added that to the policy so that it is there in black and white for people. Obviously, we want to balance the needs of the trade, but as a responsible authority, and again, we have a duty to ensure that we take sufficient steps to safeguard the public. And therefore there is changes within the policy, members, this set out for you this evening, where we look to take further steps to strengthen the safeguarding position. That is primarily in relation to any assistants that are employed within the street trading business, and that would require them to carry out a basic DBS, a check, and also that we would require them to register, so we have a record of who's working on that particular consent. We also make it clear that there's no ability to sublet a license, so we don't want someone to obtain a street trading consent and then sublet that to a third party where we've no information as to whether that third party is fit and proper to hold a license by the local authority. And again, we just clear that there's no legal entitlement over the pitch, so the pitch cannot be sold or transferred to another party. It is a requirement of the street trader to apply actually for a formal transfer to the authority if they wish to put a different name actually on the consent. We have previously endeavoured to assist street traders by advising them of their renewal date. There is a proposal within the revised policy whereby the responsibility of that is placed on the trader. The date is actually written on their consent and on the street trading badge that is on the vehicle. I must stress, members, this is a recommendation for our revised report to go out to consultation, so there will be adequate opportunity for indeed members and any interested party, including the trade, to comment on these proposals, and a more detailed report will be brought back to this committee for their consideration. We also offer the trade the ability to apply for a day consent if they just wish to actually just hold a street trade, just hold a consent for that one particular day. And we've again tried to streamline that process whereby we can notify the Highways Authority rather than formally consult them. That gives us the opportunity to speed up the process, but it also gives the Highways Authority to address any concerns they have within their own legislation under the Highways Act. And of course, as a licensing authority, if any problems do occur, then we can take that into consideration when considering any reapplication by that particular trader. We've made provision to vary a license as well, so that traders can keep their licenses and consents up to date. And we have included additional enforcement requirements in relation to the option to suspend a license, and in terms of the regulation of any ancillary equipment which is included within the consent. I just draw members' particular attention to paragraph 4.2 of the report. Again, as I highlighted in relation to the previous report that members considered this evening, the council does take a very firm position in terms of health and wellbeing, and we have, a health and wellbeing board, and we do actually look to promote health and wellbeing to our residents and support them in their lifestyle choices. As part of the policy, we did include a condition whereby we would restrict trading within a school environment, and therefore we could ensure that children had access to healthy meals, and we didn't feel that was overly prohibitive to the trade. We're grateful to the vast majority of the trade for observing that condition. However, we are mindful of the determination made by the Scottish courts in relation to street trading outside of schools, and their decision that was considered to be ultra vires in terms of that condition. So that decision was made in the Scottish courts. Obviously, we're under a different position here in terms of our English courts, but there is a recommendation in the proposal this evening, members, that we take further legal direction on our position, just to reaffirm our position on restricting street trading outside of schools as part of the consultation process. And there will be an opportunity to update members on that particular issue when we bring the consultation response back in front of members. In terms of financial considerations, again, as part of our health and wellbeing approach, we do offer a discount to the street trader if they're able to demonstrate that they're able to satisfy our nutritional standards and adopt good practices in terms of the nutritional standards of the food that they actually sell to their customers. The proposal at the moment is that we look to maintain that discount, but again, that would be part of the consultation process as to whether people felt that there was still value for maintaining that nutritional discount, and we would welcome people's views on that as part of the consultation. In terms of bringing the revised report back formally to members, if you're minded to approve us to consult on it, we will actually include an equality and impact assessment as part of that report to members. Again, if members are minded to approve the recommendation to consult, there will be a 4-week consultation process with the trade, and we will obviously include that within the council's website. So the recommendation in front of members this evening, Chair, is to approve officers to consult on the latest proposed changes or version of the street trading policy, and to bring a report back to members of the licensing committee for their consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Right, am I back on again? Can you hear me? Thank you. Right, have we any observations or questions on that report? That excellent report from David.
Excellent.
Yes, Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Councillor Dira.
Go ahead, Linda.
Again, thank you. Again, here it is about, which I'm really pleased about, further steps to enhance safeguarding and to improve health and well-being of our population. And I think, if regardless of what happened in Scotland, I think if we can actually, always be at the forefront in terms of health and well-being, and having a health and well-being board and public health, I'm really pleased about that. So very supportive of the report. Thank you to you, Dave, for this. I'm more than happy to support it and propose it when necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Dure. Anyone else?
Chairman, yes, endorse the compliments for the report and all the important changes in it. Just one thing puzzled me in on page 157, disclosure and barring service, DBS.
Yes.
Applicants will be expected to obtain a DBS certificate. It says from Disclosure Scotland. Is that right?
Dave?
Yes, it is, Chair. Obviously, an applicant can decide where to obtain their DBS, but Disclosure Scotland do offer a service which I understand is applicable to people in England as well. But again, we can check and clarify that within the consultation process, but that's my understanding. I don't know if Catherine wishes to add anything to that response.
No, I would agree with you, Dave.
Okay.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks for the explanation. That puzzled me a little bit.
They won't be selling haggis on the streets of Warrington and Walking Day. Anyone else got comments or observations, questions? Okay, can I have a proposer on the recommendation put before the committee to approve the officers to consult on the latest version of the street pavement trading policy?
Happy to propose, Chairman.
That was.
Councillor Dirra.
Thank you, Councillor Dirra. Have I a seconder?
Happy to second, Councillor Cregan.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you. Can I move over to you now, Jenny, for the vote?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Axel?
4.
Councillor Cooksey?
4.
Councillor Cregan?
4.
Councillor Dirra?
4.
Councillor Fellows?
4.
Councillor Morgan?
4.
And Councillor Wellborn?
Count 4.
Thank you. The recommendation has been approved. Thank you.
Now then, there is no part 2 of this meeting. Am I correct?
Yep, that's correct, Chair. You've covered
So
all
that,
the items on the agenda.
That brings us close to the meeting. I thank one and all for attending this meeting in what has been a little difficult sound-wise and everything. I'm sure we'll get there eventually in these tried and troubled times. But I thank you all for your patience and for your attendance, and I wish you well for the rest of the week. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, members.
Thank you, Les. Bye, everyone.